we're doing a 2-week bucket list challenge. It will be online on a Facebook group, and you'll learn more about that tonight, as well as with our event. So we're really excited about that. So if you were at Piedmont Hall last night, you heard Laura Carney mention a quote from the Muppet movie, which was one of our movies in our film series that we have ongoing this fall. And it's a great quote, and I thought you would just share it with us again because it's really apt for tonight.
Oh, there's a moment in the movie where he's having a high noon style showdown, complete with spurs and boots and a cowboy hat and all that stuff. And he says to Doc Hopper, who's trying to get him for his frog legs, the best dreams are the dreams that get bigger when they're shared.
The best dreams get bigger when they are shared. I think looking instead of with scarcity of what we have and looking at it in abundance is so important. And thank you for supporting the library and the Library Foundation. Thank you to those of you who are members of our Library Foundation. We could not do this without the support of the Library Foundation. All of our programming funds come from the Greensboro Public Library Foundation. So now it's my pleasure to hand it over to our City of Greensboro's Dr. Love Jones. And thank you all for coming tonight.
Hello, everyone. I am Love Jones. I am technically the Director of the Human Rights Department, but tonight I have the pleasure of doing the not otherwise specified duties associated with government work. And that makes me really excited because very often Beth and I connect on this love for books, authorship. And to that end, she knows that she can tap my shoulder anytime to sit with our authors that we host, and tonight is no different. We are very, very grateful to have with us a very rich panel of writers, doers, thinkers, and conveners of challenge and stepping up to the plate to do what it is that makes you feel like your best self, do what it is that allows you to show up as your most complete self. And I think that's really important in a time like this. And so to that end, I would like to introduce the panel, starting with our very own Laura Carney, who is here in residency. She is a writer and copy editor in New York. Her work as a copy editor has been primarily in magazines for 20 years, such as Good Housekeeping, People, and GQ. Her best-selling book, My Father's List, How Living My Dad's Dreams Set Me Free, was published by Post Hill Press in June 2023. Laura has appeared on CBS News, Sunday Morning, NPR, and NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt, among other TV programs. She's been covered by the Washington Post, AARP, Women's Day, and Maria Shriver's Sunday paper, among other publications. My Father's List was one of the best books of 2023 in Real Simple magazine. She co-founded and teaches the Pioneer Project with Do the Thing under founder Stacey Lauren for Melissa Gilbert's brand, Modern Prairie. Let's welcome Laura. Next we have Stacey Lauren, who is the creator of the Do the Thing movement, a visionary behind the Do the Thing Challenge, a connection-driven experience that generates confidence, courage, and community through action. With her 25-plus years of experience growing companies and training leaders, Stacey helps nonprofits, corporations, and mission-driven groups spark engagement, strengthen culture, and unleash untapped voices. Her TEDx talk, The Power of Community When It Has Goals, has inspired more than 1 million viewers worldwide. Changemakers used her Do the Thing technology to create environments where people feel seen, heard, and ready to step up. She develops transformative experiences that bring people together and trains others to facilitate these experiences in their organizations. As a charity auctioneer, Stacey has also connected the dots between personal and professional growth and impact, and uses these activations to help for-profit and nonprofit missions raise funds and awareness. Her current mission is to train 3,333 challenge hosts and match them with organizations around the globe, bringing life-changing, do-the-thing experiences to those who need them most. Let's give Stacey a hand. And certainly last but not least, we have Anne-Marie Wells, who is an award-winning poet, playwright, memoirist, and oral storyteller. She is the author of 2 poetry collections, Survived by Curious COVID Publishing and Mother, Cinnamon Press, as well as 2 children's books, Mommy, Why My Bird? And Underwater Explorers and Rescuers. Her book of writing prompts, Write Some Cool, fill in the blank, will debut in November 2025, and her travel memoir, Happy Iceland, is forthcoming in June 2026. She is the host and founder of the weekly Zoom show, The Joy of Posting, and works...
Poeting.
Poeting, okay, it does say posting here for the record, but poeting, no worries, no worries.
That is correct, yeah.
The joy of poeting, because it is a verb.
She's
Yes.
a poet.
And works as a freelance copy editor, writing coach, and creative writing instructor. Again, let's give a hand to Anne-Marie Wells. No, absolutely. It's really a joy to sit here with you all to talk about something as rich as the bucket list concept, right? And we know that there's this kind of ever-evolving definition of bucket list. And if each of you would be so kind to share what your definition of bucket list is and how it's evolved or changed over time.
I'll start since I wrote the book about bucket lists.
There we go.
But you know what's so funny is I don't think my dad thought of it as a bucket list because the term bucket list didn't even exist until, what year did the movie come out, Steven?
2001?
Something like that. Yeah, the movie came out early 2000s, and I actually found out recently it was the screenwriter of the movie The Bucket List who invented the phrase bucket list. So in 1978, when my dad wrote his list of things he hoped to do in his lifetime, I think he wrote things I would like to do in my lifetime. And I love that he underlined would like, because he wasn't even thinking about his death. He was thinking about his life. So for me, that's what the term bucket list has become, because until I found my father's list, I just thought of bucket list as like, that's something Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson came up with in a movie because they both had terminal illnesses and they wanted to do some crazy stuff like go skydiving and all the other things they did. Climb Mount Kilimanjaro, I've heard, it was a few different things that they did that were not normal activities for either one of them. But for my dad, he came up with a list that's actually a list of just, here's the life I want to have. And I have never heard of anybody else doing that. And when I discovered it, it inspired me. And honestly, as I started to check it off for him after his death, it gave me permission to write a life list for myself. So I don't think I ever would have done that, and I never would have thought of living my life with intention in that way. And I never would have understood the power of writing those things down. And that's one of the things we're going to be talking about, Stacey and I will, over the next couple of weeks with you all. And I'm super excited because we've seen amazing transformations in people when they write down their dreams.
Yeah, life list concept. Bucket list definitely in alignment with the movie implies this list of things you check off before you die. But
Before you kick the bucket.
Right, but here you are, talking about it from the notion of casting your anchor forward, right?
Totally.
Just living forward.
Yeah, so for me, can I do before I read Laura's book and then after?
Sure.
So before I read Laura's book, I imagined the bucket list as a really big external journey, where, yes, I want to go to because she really works you through her own personal experience as she's doing the bucket list, and you could like feel the confidence growing and the courage by her dad holding her hand, through it, and so I think now for me a bucket list is kind of like connecting the dots between your internal experience and your external experience, and being able to really find your courage through each step, but then growing as you're doing each item.
So it's as much an intrinsic thing as it is like actually doing the thing.
Yeah.
Unintrinsic, right?
Very well said.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I am seeing my multiple bucket lists as there are some extraordinary elements, like my trip to Iceland was an extraordinary element. But then I don't think that it needs to be that way for everybody. So Laura, for example, jumped out of an airplane, not on my bucket list. I am perfectly happy someday dying, never having jumped out of an airplane. That's not on my list at all. But I realized as I was driving here, I said to my husband, oh, this is my first time ever going to North Carolina. Like, it wasn't necessarily something that I dreamed of always doing, but I just acknowledged that I had never done this before. I had never gone to North Carolina, and we live in Virginia, so I've driven through it to go to Florida to visit my mother, but we've never come here for an event. And my husband said, oh, me neither. And so we were able to share that moment of experiencing something we've never experienced before. It's not extraordinary, but it's still novel, and it's sparking our curiosity. And as we were walking around your beautiful city and getting dinner with Laura, we're like, this is really cool. And looking at the murals and just seeing things we've never seen before. It's still something new. And the other day when I was getting my hair cut, I was kind of on a time crunch because we were taking my mother-in-law out to dinner, and we were going to this Indian restaurant, and my hairdresser said, I've never had Indian food in my whole life. And I was like, well, I will send you the menu, and I will highlight all the things that I recommend. And she sent me a message saying that she went and that she liked it, but that was something novel for her. So I think that this idea of a bucket list can be simplified, and it can be personal, and even Stacey was saying that it doesn't have to be external either. It doesn't have to be going to North Carolina or going to the Indian restaurant. Maybe it's I want to talk to my children about this thing that I experienced in my life. I want to ask my mother this question that I've never been brave enough to ask her. So they can be more intimate things. Or maybe I want to explore something within myself that I have never been either brave enough to do or had the opportunity or the access to resources to do. So it doesn't have to be external either. I think my evolution in this definition has been, it can be something very personal that nobody else even has to know exists or that you're experiencing.
So you mentioned something interesting about this concept of happenstance, right? Because also the historic definition of bucket list is a thing that you, in one space and time, create and then pursue. What you've offered, Anne-Marie, is that you can sometimes stumble upon your nuance, stumble upon your adventure, so it was never prescribed, but more or less something that you literally encountered along the way that was worthy of stamping as a thing that is meaningful to you. You also created a wonderful segue to this next question, which is about the idea of extraordinary exploits. When we hear bucket list, many times we do think of traveling outside of the country, jumping out of an airplane, taking 5-year-olds on a field trip at the quantity of 30 at a time. But that is an extraordinary exploit. But to that end, because they're normally associated with these more extraordinary exploits, is there room, and you've implied that there is, for the ordinary on a bucket list, and if so, why is that important?
Absolutely. I mean, I have many things on my list that people might consider to be ordinary. Like be a friend to my brothers and my cousins, encourage my husband's creativity, to prove I was an adult all the time, and like, am I living up to what's expected of me in a way, I started to become a person who was looking for opportunities to give.
Mhm.
You know, like, oh, that's a cool thing I could do. Also, that's a thing I could do to help another person. So, that's your question, right? Like,
Yes,
ordinary things.
100%.
That's a very ordinary thing, right? Doing a good deed, doing something nice for somebody. Except at the same time, it's like the most extraordinary thing
Absolutely.
that we can do as human beings.
Absolutely. And in a time like now where we are searching for pockets of joy and kindness, just to share with other people,
Yeah.
that part of the intentionality of that level of bucket list is really, really critical.
And it becomes habit. That's the other cool thing. Like, I have a new thing I do now. If somebody lashes out at me for any reason whatsoever, I will, instead of sitting there stewing and thinking, oh, I didn't deserve that, you know, like that was, and that's happening a lot these days, I think. Tensions are high, right? I'm sure everybody else is noticing that. Instead, what I'll do, I'll take it and I'll go, okay, how many people can I spread joy to in this moment? Like, there was one of those incidents happened to me on Valentine's Day this year. It wasn't my husband, don't worry. It was somebody else. But then I just immediately went and I wished happy Valentine's Day via text to every loved one and every friend, you know, and it was like, I'm sure some of them, my stepbrother probably was like, why is she wishing me happy Valentine's Day? This is weird. But it didn't matter because it's like, I flipped it immediately.
Right.
And it's just because I've learned to do good deeds just as a list, I now do them as habit, and it makes me feel better.
And of course, unless you're in the Air Force, you can't make a habit of jumping out of planes.
There you go.
But you can certainly make a habit of
And that could-
kindness,
yeah.
right? And that becomes extraordinary in and of itself.
Yeah, so it's so interesting with ordinary because I think what it is, it's like you're getting to build the skill because it's like comfortable for you, and then you're actually becoming the person that like does the things that you want to do, which feels really good because you're like, wait, I did that, and so it's great from a, you know, because ordinary things are great. I was just thinking about what you said, Laura, and I'm like, oh man, that's so cool because you're like basically tricking your response to things, you know, and so your mind is now, I love that. It's like, so I'm like, I want to do that now.
That's so great. Like, your mindset, the way you look at your life, you're actually in control of that. That's what until I did this project, I didn't know that. But I could change. Like, things I believed for a long time maybe didn't apply to me.
Yeah, I love that. And then the other thing with Laura's book in terms of like ordinary, and I don't know if this is necessarily ordinary, but there were things on there that were like extraordinary, and then she figured out a way to do them. So it's almost like that's another skill that you get from doing this is you like get to be creative, where I think in the old way of doing things, a lot of times we're like, oh, I can't do that. That's too much money, or that's too crazy, or that's too out of my comfort zone, or like that's for people that blank, right? Whatever, we all know that language, you know. And but when you are like able to like, when you know you have this list that you like want to do, then you have to like go, well, how can I make this work? How can it happen? And I feel like that's a really beautiful thing, where like from the ordinary side of it, where you're able to actually like see how can I actually do it.
Yeah, that becomes habit too.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and Stacey, you mentioned something really critical, which is this idea of having to start from ordinary to get to extraordinary, right? And usually we think we have to hurl ourselves into extraordinary and then work back to ordinary, but you're offering that skill set of trying to figure out how to do the thing that's way out there in the nebulous. You have to start from a very basic place and put the pieces together. And so that, and as you highlighted, that makes its own habit. So what about you?
Yeah, so as you were talking, what sparked in my brain was the idea of stepping out of your comfort zone. I feel like everybody who's in this room and they're interested in bucket lists, you have to have at least a little bit of sense of curiosity. And well, maybe not everybody, maybe somebody was dragged here by somebody else, and you don't actually want to be here. So maybe you're not curious at all. you start small, and maybe that's very uncomfortable for you, and you need to learn the skills and learn to be outside or whatever it is that applies to you, and then you can build from there. And so ordinary can then have a ripple effect into something more extraordinary if you want. Also, if you don't want, also great.
So you used a buzzword that kind of comes to mind for me when thinking of bucket list, and that's the word curiosity. I believe that there's this place where query or question and imagination have to come to a meeting point. They converge in order to really build out a bucket list. So can you talk about how important it is to remain curious and dream? Because they can exist separately, but can you talk about the relationship between curiosity and dreaming in order to, or imagining in order to create a bucket list?
Well, the first thing I think of when you say that is, I think it was a couple years ago, the writer Elizabeth Gilbert had a book that came out. What was it called? Stephen, do you remember?
Big Magic.
Big Magic, yes, thank you. And one of the things that she talked about a lot when it came, I know she has a new book out right now, but one of the things she talked about a lot when that book came out was how sick and tired she got of hearing people, well-meaning people, I'm sure, giving these self-help talks about following your passion. Because she would sit there and feel so alienated because she was like, I don't know what my passion is. Does everybody have one? Because I don't know mine. And then what she started discovering was that when she chose to listen to her curiosity, it would lead her to her passion. And I actually was, that's kind of what dreams are, right? They are your passion. But I was even thinking the other night about this because what's even more important than dreams and passion are calling. Because when you discover your calling, that's not just a thing that you yearn to, like your soul yearns to do. That's a thing that actually the world needs you to do. So it's like another level. And it occurred to me because one of the movies in the film festival, I don't know if you guys have, you've probably seen this, Field of Dreams. Is everyone familiar with Field of Dreams?
Yes.
There's a moment in that movie that when I saw it as a kid, went right over my head. And it probably did even like 6 years ago when I first started writing this book. That was one of the movies I watched. And that was why I chose it for the film festival. But when I was rewatching it this week, there's a moment in that movie, and it's so moving. I just started crying when I was watching it because it's where so there's a part of the movie where he goes, Kevin Costner's character, Ray Kinsella, he stops in, I think it's Minnesota, because they tell him in Fenway Park, like a thing appears on the screen, and it's like, go the distance, go find Midnight Graham. So they go to Minnesota, and it turns out Midnight Graham became a doctor, and he has since died. And he has this weird, like, meeting with the ghost of Doc Graham, like he just shows up, and he says to him, it's a crime that you only played in the major leagues for one day. And he's like, I know a place where you can go and do it, because he has the field that he built it, and then they came, he has the field in his backyard. And Midnight Graham says, no, it would have been a crime if I never became a doctor. And I thought that was so fascinating, because he said it would have been a crime if I never
That
saved
just
all
gave me
these kids.
goosebumps.
And then they're like, okay, well, that was weird. I just talked to a ghost in the middle of a city I don't know. And like he and James Earl Jones, they get back in the car, and he's like, I gotta see this field, That's my James Earl Jones impression. So they go to the field in Indiana. My husband would do a better job. They go to the field in Indiana, and suddenly a hitchhiker is on the road. And the hitchhiker is played by Frank Whaley, and he gets in the car, and they're like, what's your name? And he says, oh, my name is Archibald Graham. So now they're seeing a different version of the same guy, and he's like, oh, I'm going to go play in the majors. So he gets there, and now he's suddenly on the field, and he's getting to play with, Shoeless Joe Jackson and whoever these people are. And then the kid, Kevin Costner's daughter, starts choking, and he turns into Doc Graham, the older version of himself, and he walks over and he saves her life. And it moved me to tears because I thought, holy crap, like Doc Graham's dream and his calling was to be that doctor. The younger version of him, if he had never pursued that dream of that one day of playing baseball, he would never have found his calling. So when you talk about the energy of your curiosity, that's the thing I think people don't realize a lot. Going after dreams is not a trivial thing at all. If you actually pursue things you're curious because it's so unusual to do that, suddenly you're living in a state of play. You're living in an energy of having fun. And when you're having fun like a little kid does, that's when you know. Because the calling will come calling and you'll recognize it. Because you're ready to receive it. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Stacey?
So good. Yeah, I love that you're connecting the bucket list to dreams, because I feel like a lot of people don't talk about that, nor do they connect the dots in that way. And so I really like that. And I do see it's so connected. It's funny, like in the last month, I set this new dream where I want to raise $1 billion for charity using this new system I've discovered. And what's interesting, actually, learned this from Laura, is when you can quiet your mind enough, then you start to get to be curious, and you get to notice all the things that are around there that are connected. And you're like, oh, there's a reason this is happening, and then you're able to like soak it in, and then you get to take the next step, and then the next step, and then all of a sudden you see the path, and you're like, oh my gosh, is that really happening? And so that's how I like to connect curiosity to dreams. It's like realizing that, like, and every time I've set this goal, this dream, I'm like, are you crazy? Like, where in the world? Like, are you serious? You know, and I just did an event and the whole thing, and everyone's excited. I have a bunch of people that went, and but it's like everything is showing the way that it's like really going to happen, you know, because it keeps opening. And so I think that's what's really important with curiosity, is setting a big dream, and then just being curious as you're going each step, but then reminding yourself when you hear the negative chatter that you're just seeing, you're just curious. Like, even if it doesn't happen, you're just curious, and you're going to let it see what happens. And what
It's just an
unfolds.
experiment.
Yeah.
So your feedback is actually like bi-directional, which I think is really cool. On the one hand, you can start as just curious about anything, and it can build out a dream of what can be. On the other hand, you can see in your mind, in your imagination, in your dreams, what can be, and then you become curious about how to build it out. So that, I think that gives hope to the listeners either way, because some person might say, well, what if I don't have any dreams, but I am curious about some stuff? And someone else says, well, I dream all the time, but I've never thought of how. And so I think that that's a cool interplay of both concepts. Anne-Marie, round us out.
Yes. So I would like to share an anecdote about an accordion based on curiosity.
I'm here for it.
So probably, I think 10 years ago, I was curious and interested in learning how to play the accordion. I was living in Jackson, Wyoming at the time, and I drove 10 hours I'm not, a world stage accordion player or anything like that. The dream doesn't have to be that large. You can just fulfill a curiosity, and once you do, you can move on to the next one as well. So it doesn't have to ripple out or become bigger and bigger and bigger. It can just stay small and fulfill a tiny niche in your life in that moment.
So my daughter's 27, and she might be watching this right now, but she came home a couple of months ago from NOLA, where she lives, and she was like, I'm really intrigued by DJing. And I was like, how cool is that? Her dad and I look at each other because we know there's only a matter of time before this DJ equipment ends up in her home. And sure enough, she called us within a week and said, somebody was just selling DJ equipment and I've got it. And so, but you appreciate this idea that, again, she either sees herself DJing and therefore has become curious, or she's curious about DJing and now sees herself as a DJ. But either way, there's a beauty in that relationship. But then I want to shift gears a minute, because the reality is that sometimes life experience really doesn't normalize the opportunity to dream in the traditional sense. Sometimes life is cloaked in hardship or disadvantage or being othered in a way that makes the gravity of reality, whether it's limited resources, opportunity, what have you, it makes creating a bucket list literally like last on the list of things to do, right? In the name of function and survival. So how have you inspired or supported those with limited capacity to dream and craft bucket lists when life would say otherwise?
I think Stacey's going to have a very good answer for this one, but I want to touch on it because also I was thinking about this when you were asking about curiosity. My dad was a very curious person. It was the way he lived, but he also was a person who didn't have a lot of means. I remember shortly before he died, obviously he didn't know he was going to die in a car crash, but he did have a heart issue. And I asked him, because he had this heart issue, and now it's starting to come to my awareness of what if something happens to him. I said, what do you have any regrets for your life? And he said, he thought about it for a minute, and he said that I never had enough money to do all the things I wanted to do. And of course, I didn't know he had a bucket list at that time. I wouldn't find out until 13 years later, and then as soon as I saw it, then I understood. He had kept it that whole time, and he only checked off 5 of the items. But you know what? He checked off 5 items of his bucket list, and that's amazing. It's amazing that he wrote it down, even though I had just been born when he wrote it. And my mom found it in a dresser and was like, you want to correspond with the Pope? Like, we just had a baby. Like we should be thinking about buying diapers, and if you're a parent, you have responsibilities, or you have a very demanding career. You're in a place in your life where things are not going as well as you would like them to be going. Obviously, when you're in those situations, your brain is not going to be on yourself. So when I first started doing this list for him, I actually had that thought, I don't want to be self-centered doing this. This is a thing that people do when they're all about them, because it's their dreams. And I was afraid of that because my father was so creative and so curious that every time I saw him, he had a new dream. Even though I didn't know about the list, it was like, he was investing in bottled water. And come to think of it, boy, he was really ahead of his time. Because that was 1996 when he said that. That was one of the things. A lot of times people who are brilliant and creative, they come up with ideas and the world's not ready for them. I remember the Donnelly directory came out. I'm selling phone books, but they're just all businesses. And then later, Facebook was invented and the internet, he missed all of that. But that's who he was. And I resisted being that person because I thought that's a person who's not stable. That's a person who doesn't follow through. But at the same time, thank goodness he was that way, because it showed me that that's good. It showed me that being a creative person is a good thing to be. It's a good thing to do with your life. And even if you're in situations where you can't maybe see them all the way through, you could at least do 5, because he did check off 5 of them. And I honestly think it was never about the outcome with his list. I wish I could have asked him. I wish he could have shared it with me and I had a conversation with him about it. But it was never about getting through all 60 of those items for him. It was just the act of writing them down more about the journey than the outcome.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Yeah, so I believe it's all about asking yourself the right question, and also asking it in the right way so your mind can hear it. So something I've noticed, one of the challenges I ran in the very beginning was the first one was a dating challenge with dares. And one of the things I had the people inside the challenge do every day was tell themselves that they love themselves. So that was like the most important piece of being able to like meet new people, right, is self-love. And for many of the people, and I know this because I personally went through this, is it's kind of hard to say what you love about yourself sometimes when you feel so shut down, you know, from the world. And so the way we switched the prompt was, back to prompts, we can actually, is it was like instead of saying what you love about yourself, it was like, what doesn't suck about you? and then all of a sudden they're doing that every day. And then guess what happens? Now they're willing to say like what they love about themselves. And so I think that really helps you kind of like open yourself up to be able to do things. And you guys will learn about the comfort circle soon. That's kind of part of how that was created. But like another example is I did start a podcast challenge, and I had hundreds of people start podcasts, but they were stuck in the very beginning because originally the question was, what kind of podcast do you want to start? And then do you know what happens? I don't know. What kind of podcast do I want to start? What's the name? And then all of a sudden you get stuck in the spin, right? That we can get sometimes. But instead you change the question to, if I was going to start a podcast, what kind of podcast would I start? Now your mind is open to hear it. And so that's something that I always like to say. It's just like, when you hear yourself saying no, I don't want to do that. It's just see if you can change the question a little bit to get yourself to hear it, so then you're at least open to what it says.
I guess I think I have two things to share, so let's see if I remember both of them. I think that your question touches upon a lot of real experiences that people have every day. Maybe they have dreams, but they are homebound because of a disability, or they're just working on survival right now. They're not even thinking about thriving, they're thinking about surviving. And so my first thought is asking for help. So if there is something that you want to do, there's probably someone who is already doing it. And reaching out to those people and figuring out, how do I do what you're doing? Before I wrote Happy Iceland, I had no writing experience at all. I went to school for ecology. I have a master's in ecology. I did not know how to write. Didn't even know how to start. What books do I read? I have no idea. And I just reached out to my writer friends and asked them, what books did you read to learn how to write? and they sent me YouTube videos and all of this stuff. And I started looking online for free classes, free workshops that were virtual. I was living in rural Wyoming at the time, so there weren't a lot of offerings. And the one writing conference that was every year was like hundreds of dollars to attend, so it was like out of my budget. But I was able to volunteer and go to that conference then for free. So there were like different ways that I could use my community to help me then pursue my dreams. This is also 10 years in the making, so I ended up going back to school, getting a scholarship, crowdsourcing the rest of my tuition. So I think that there are ways to achieve your dreams if you are willing to ask for help. And then thinking about what you said, Stacey, about what doesn't suck about me, and kind of like maybe doing a bucket list in reverse. One exercise that my husband and I do every single day is before we go to bed, we ask each other, what delighted you today? And that exercise, I think, then opens us up to seeing good, delightful things during the day in our lives. And they're very also not extraordinary things. So for the longest time, we had this bumblebee that was visiting our backyard, and we named her Bee Arthur. So I was like, oh, I saw Bee Arthur today. Or we have a toddler, and so project that I was working on, whatever it is. Oh, we didn't get any bills in the mailbox today. That's something that delighted me. So just focusing on those little things of delight can help you get through that survival mode, and then maybe help you inch into a place where maybe you feel like you can thrive a little bit more, or just like kind of get you over that hump to be open to other possibilities.
Well, I think something that you said that's really compelling is that when you take the unconventional route, that in and of itself can be its own portal for dreaming, and when you don't normally dream, because usually what cramps dreams is the idea of taking conventional steps, and if you don't have the resources or the components for the conventional step, then that automatically becomes discouraging.
The obstacle.
Absolutely. I'm 5'1", so when I think of playing for the NBA, it's a little dicey, but then I can reference Spud Webb and say,
Yeah.
but it's still possible, right?
You could play intramural, right? So
Right.
there are other ways to achieve your NBA dreams.
Right.
My dream is to be a professional wrestler in the WWE.
Right.
So as far as I know, there's no intramural
Right.
version of that.
But that's just it, is that, it is about revamping the way, right? Or even maybe,
Maybe I need
Scaling.
to start it, build it,
Yes.
and they will come, right?
So Stacey
I have to
mentioned,
start the WWE for middle-aged women.
but Stacey mentions this idea of scaling, right? Like that it starts in one iteration and then you gradually build it out, because as you accomplish the pieces of the scale of the dream, then the dream in the larger form actualizes. To round us out and move us into the next phase of this wonderful evening, I just want to ask one last question. Bucket lists grow and change over time, as we've discussed. And I just want to know if you could share with everyone what keeps you motivated to keep building out your own bucket list.
It's people. I mean, I just keep thinking about these incredible relationships. I didn't know these two women before I started doing this. I didn't know the two women sitting in that front row from Modern Prairie. I didn't have any connection to Greensboro, not really. I mean, one of the things that was so brilliant that Anne Marie just touched on was when she talked about this practice she's now developed with her husband, where they have something they talk about that they're grateful for every night. Because since they're doing that, she said it now trains their brains to find the things to be grateful for every day. When I started doing my dad's bucket list, I had no idea how I was going to do this. And then I started realizing, oh, people are going to help me. And it wasn't just because they knew why I was doing it. I mean, yes, of course, they wanted to do something, people who knew me, my friends, my loved ones, they wanted to help me honor my dad, because it's really hard when someone dies in a tragic way. People don't know what to say or what to do, but if you give them something to do that's positive and that's life affirming, they are inclined to say yes and to help you. So I know that was one of the reasons, but I honestly think the other reason was because they just thought it was really cool. like how often do you get to do something just because it's fun and it's on somebody's bucket list? And so if you actually start writing your own bucket list, you're going to find people are going to want to join you. Stacey will explain, one of the things we put on the Facebook group is, what's my excuse? She always does that. Your pre-dare, which she'll explain to you, is what's going to stop me from doing my bucket list? And what I wrote was, I don't know if I have enough time. And then she says, well, how are you going to overcome it? The way I'm going to overcome it is I'm going to let people help me. And I became a person, and my husband will attest to this, I was never the person who made friends everywhere I went, ever. I would keep to my own business. I lived in New York City, they don't do that there. And then suddenly it was in my best interest to become that person who says hi to someone, asks them how their day is going, talks about more than the weather. Because they could be someone who's going to help me check off, own a large house in our own land, own a tennis court, these more impossible ones, that might be a realtor sitting next to me on a train. I stopped being that person who's in their phone all the time, because it was actually preventing me from seeing my life. And now I think that as a culture we've sort of become that way. Like we just that, the universe is supporting you if you have a dream. And if you do that, you're going to miss it. So that's how I do it. I just stay aware, and I am always willing to connect with other people.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think what helps me do my bucket list is doing my bucket list. Because it's like so fun when you're like, I just did that. You know, it's so funny. I had Greece on my list forever, and there was no like internal reason other than I always thought it was pretty. But for whatever reason, I always talked myself out of it because I'm like, it's too far, it's so much money, so whatever it is, right? And then my daughter, who's graduating, she graduated high school, she was like, I really want to go, and it was her graduation. And of course, then I'm like making time to go to Greece, and it ended up being like the most amazing time. And one of the things that happened while we were there was she had been wanting a tattoo, but I made her wait till she was 18. And so we're going to the tattoo shop in Greece, and I'm sitting there, and she's getting the tattoo for me. That she's smart. That's how she got the tattoo. And so she's getting it for me, and then I decided I wanted to get the same like with her, you know, and have us get it together. And I went through all the internal blocks of like what I felt about tattoo, you know, like the whole thing. And I was able to like tap into the experience of like how special it was. And now we have this like amazing memory together. And so anyway, it was something I never imagined having on my bucket list, you know, this extra thing, but I just feel like that's part of what helps me do it, you know, is doing it. And then I would also say like having a community around you, and you guys will hear about what that's about, but that they don't let you like they do let you stop, you know, obviously because you want to take time for yourself. And I've many people that tell me that, but they definitely help. Like when you have people around you, like we have this community here, and we're going to be building it even deeper and stronger over the next few weeks, and it's going to be like so amazing. And that's what helps even more because like we don't let each other down. We're doing it together.
And I think for me, what keeps me motivated is my why. All of my dreams have a very big why behind them. So my first book that I have over there chronicles my experience caring for my father at the end of his life. And I needed to complete this book for my dad, for me, but also for my dad, to just let everybody know how wonderful he was. That was so important to me. And so when publishers said no to it, I wasn't discouraged. I just kept going. It was like, oh, that's a no, oh, that's a no. Because I had this greater why to keep going. With Happy Iceland, I've had over 400 no's to this book. But those no's then encouraged me to learn more, to edit, to revise, to be in the AWP mentorship program where I met Laura. And then the book kept getting better and better and better and better and better. And I never let go of the dream because my bigger why is I had to say thank you to all of the wonderful Icelandic people who took me into their homes. I was a stranger who helped me. I needed to do this for them. So that was my bigger why. Even going to Iceland, I had a why for why I wanted to go to Iceland. You'll have to read the book to find out, but it doesn't come out until June. But I think that having that core element is what motivates me. Like with the accordion, I wanted to learn the theme song to Amelie. That was my why. And then once I did it, I was like, okay, well, that's good. So other dreams that I have a dream of earning a PhD in poetry or in English. And part of that is because I want to provide for my family. And I see that as a way for me to move forward with what I love to do, but that I can also make a living. So those dreams I think I have are stemmed and fueled by a bigger reason why I'm attempting to reach them.
Well, you know, all three of you gave really compelling answers, and I think if anything, you've given the audience some really key tools to pull out of their own toolboxes, tailor to their experiences, their dreams, their curiosity, but also tailoring their motivation. Because you all three gave very distinct reasons that push you. And so I encourage the audience to really just reflect on, you know, what is your fuel and what pushes you. in the name of, moving into the next phase of the program, we're gonna wrap up our panel, but I want to say a genuine thank you for not only being here tonight, but for doing what brought you here. Because I think that it definitely is exemplary for people who are equally curious and having dreams that they want to fulfill. So let's give our panelists, Laura, Stacey, and Anne Marie, a hand.
Take it away. Let's do the
Okay. I have props. So I'll tell you guys, you're watching my dream happen right now. Yeah. So my dream is that people will speak about the thing that they've done, and then after they speak, guess what happens? They get to do the thing together. And so this is literally a dream for me. So so thank you, Laura. So first of all, how many of you are curious about the bucket list challenge? Okay, cool. So we're gonna go through what that's like, but first I'm kind of gonna talk about the history of the challenges. It's not gonna take too long, I promise. But we'll see if I can work this. So we're gonna try that. But congratulations. How many of you are gonna without knowing much about it? How many of you are I want to be a part of Laura's journey and be able to have her guide us personally through our bucket list challenge? You guys interested? Okay, cool. That's what we're basically doing. Is you have the opportunity to be guided by Laura through the bucket list challenge, through being able to create your bucket list. And she's done it now, I think we've done this 5 times.
It's nonstop wisdom and also nonstop nonsense.
And so it's a really special opportunity to learn from her. So first of all, congratulations. So since you guys said yes, congratulations on doing the bucket list challenge. So, okay, and then if I can do this one, I'm going to be super happy. Great. Okay, we'll try again.
Go slower.
Go slower? Okay.
The whole hand. The little arrow came up.
Yep.
Is that right?
Keep going.
Okay.
Are you supposed to swipe the other way?
There you go.
Oh, there we go.
Yay.
Okay, so do the thing. The tagline for everything is don't wait for opportunity, create it. And so that's kind of talking about how we are reprogramming our minds. That's the one thing that. Do you want to? Yeah.
Just hold, put your hand
There we
on
go.
it.
Nope, here, I got it.
How do I shrink it?
She's the expert
Okay,
now.
thanks.
Big
So-
opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Big opportunity. There you go.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
You just have to kind of touch it with a couple of fingers.
Oh, there you go. Okay, cool. Okay, so this all started basically, I owned a company for 20 years. It was a staffing company. I got a really big view of people as they were looking for jobs and things like that. And when I exited that company, I went through a big identity crisis. And that's when I started a podcast. What else are you gonna do when you start, when you have an identity crisis? I had basically decided to interview a bunch of people to see what they had in common when it came to achieving their goals. And so that's what I basically uncovered on my podcast. I did it. Okay. And so
Curiosity.
I did. So I basically was dissecting a formula, and I was like, what did they all have in common? So I ended up interviewing hundreds of people, and then as I figured out,
Just a couple fingers. Just a couple
Okay.
fingers.
and then as I
You just
basically,
need to go a little slower.
okay,
And
we can do this.
Do one finger, not
One finger.
not a couple.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Okay, great. Okay, so yeah, oh yeah. Okay, so as I was, okay, cool, yeah. And then as I was, basically, once I started interviewing people, I dissected the patterns. That's when I was like, I want to test this formula that I started to identify in a challenge. And I mentioned the dating challenge earlier. I had just met my boyfriend, and was like, everyone's got to meet someone in person. I wanted to actually get people off of dating apps. So I put a post in a group, and we're gonna do it next. Yeah, I put a post in a group
And it was very simple, and 100 people joined, and that was my first Do the Thing challenge. And basically, that's when I really was like, okay, this formula actually works, because I put it inside of the challenge. And so we're going to go through the formula through the actual challenge that you guys are going to be going through, but basically it's I'm game. Anne-Marie mentioned knowing your why. We also mentioned mindset, goals, accountability, and then educate is another piece. And then the My People one, let's see if I can, otherwise I'll have you, yeah, okay, we got this, we're gonna do it, Okay, so what ended up happening is it actually, and because I saw it in a group challenge, this formula that helps a person take action, it actually gets the group to take action together. And it actually builds community and connection through it, because when you're, like, we could talk about that for a minute, like when you're in a group and you're taking action together on your bucket list, like you're out of your comfort zone, right? And that's when friendships get born, that's when you're like in that adrenaline state.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I meant when I said I do it for the relationships, because I got to experience my dad's spirit through other people who were helping me, and that's what helped me to overcome my grief. You know, because now I'm a vital person who vitalizes, connecting with other vital people who vitalize. And when you're in one of Stacey's groups, which is what we're going to invite you all to do, and you share things that you want to do, suddenly you recognize your dreams aren't that unique. There's other people who share those dreams. Or if you share what you're afraid of that could go wrong, you start to recognize, oh, other people have those same fears. And there's just some kind of magic in actually being that vulnerable and saying those things out loud. I think that's what you mean, right?
Totally, yeah. And then, perfect timing, Laura. So that's when I noticed, that's like all, so I ended up doing all these different challenges, basically. I went a little crazy, challenge crazy. And to our cocktail party, yeah, find your voice. Okay. Yeah. And then, okay, I'm gonna go back to without that slide. So what I noticed is when I was running all these challenges was the biggest piece of helping people achieve their goals was actually what I call my people. And what that is people that share the same goal as you. So it could be, now we're doing this as a community, so it's possible your friends and family might be in the room with us, but they're joining because they want to do a bucket list, right? But there's a lot of times where your friends and family and support network, they don't have the same goal as you. So if they don't want to, let's say you tell them, you go home and you're like, I'm going to do the bucket list. They're going to be like, you're crazy. Why are you doing that?
Well, here's a great example. How many people in my life do you think thought I could do this? That one and my mother. But it was crazy. 60 items. That's a crazy pursuit, right? So that's exactly what you're talking about.
And so that's what the group does. It builds this my people component where you are actually, it's scary to say your goals sometimes, depending on what group you're in. But when you're in a group of people that want to also do the same thing, and in this case it's going to be the bucket list challenge, now all of a sudden it's not scary to say your dream out loud because we're all wanting to do it, and they're going to be supporting and encouraging you in like the coolest way. And so I met Laura. I heard about Laura, actually. I even found the first email that I sent to you.
What? Wait, I didn't approve of this.
And I basically was like, found out about her book. I heard about her, reached out, and then she came on my podcast. We did like an expert panel where I invited her to come into one of my Start a Book expert panels, and then we got this. Okay, cool. And then, basically, that's when we met and got connected. And that's when we decided to make a challenge together around her book. And we actually did this amazing expert panel with different experts, and they helped us kind of like add energy.
Yeah, also these are my friends, and like I was saying earlier, I didn't know Stacey or Anne-Marie before I started my project. I didn't know anybody in that room either. These are just along the way I would meet people and they'd say, oh, I know someone, Mary Latham, for example, the woman in the pink sweatshirt. I was told, I know someone who's going to every single state and staying with strangers to honor her mother who just died of cancer. You know, and then Mary and I became friends. And because we had that common bond of we were both going after a list of some kind. So really, like by the time I met Stacey and she said, can we put together a panel of experts who did what you did, you would think this was a very unique thing, but actually the universe saw fit to bring these other people into my life, and they actually ended up helping me and becoming like kindred spirits.
And so we almost like created our own like people group, right? By creating this challenge, and it added all the extra energy for us to see what was like actually alive. And some of the dares come actually from that panel, which was really exciting. And yeah, so Ethan Bryan, and then Gregory Benedict is someone that I've known for a while, and then Jeff Truesdale.
These are all regular, everyday people, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And then that was when we ran the challenge inside the Do the Thing community, and that was one of the ones was Lala. She actually went to Portugal and Spain, and one of the things on her bucket list was to sing.
She wanted to sing. She wanted to sing in Spain.
Yeah, sing in Spain, which is so cool. And the Darcy was the winner, which was fun. And everyone loved it. It was really great. And then Laura got featured on Melissa Gilbert's Celebrity Book Club with Modern Prairie, which is when we got entered into Modern Prairie, and then Laura.
Well, Modern Prairie is so great because they pick authors for their book club, and then sometimes they'll say to the authors, would you like to contribute to our community in any way? And I said, well, sure, I guess I could teach about bucket listing. Who could help me do that? Oh, maybe this wonderful woman I just met named Stacey Lauren, who we had done it on her Facebook group. So that was how it happened that I got to introduce Stacey Lauren to Melissa Gilbert's community, and then the two of us started teaching it together.
And the cool thing was I had no idea I could actually do this for other people. So that was like the first time that
That's true.
that happened. Yeah. And so that was when the Prairie Pioneer Project was born.
Yeah, we decided to call it the Pioneer Project because pioneers, Little House on the Prairie, and also I realized how feminist those women were. You know, like these women out in the Old West who were going out there on Conestoga wagons, reinventing themselves, and all they knew was this East Coast lifestyle. I mean, some of our people from our group are here tonight. Karen is one of our pioneers, and you know, it felt like the right name for it because they're all setting out on a new adventure. But again, that's not new because historically people have done this. Historically, women have done this.
Yeah, and it's great because then we've also actually done different challenges inside the group and based on what we see they needed next. And so those are basically the classes that have been opened up since then, which has been amazing.
So yeah, those are all the different names of our classes, yeah.
We can skip through that one, but you're doing great, by the way. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a video I can share in the Facebook group later of all the different challenges. But yeah, and then I did a TEDx talk.
I watched that today.
On.
I watched that today.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, and so that's on the Power Community to help you achieve your goals. And it's funny, so it went viral, and everybody like finally understood what I do and what my people was. But I missed something in this talk, where I actually just spoke at the United Nations a few weeks ago, and I got to share what it was then. And it's actually the challenge. I missed that you need to have a structured shared action experience for you really to have for you to really take action on your goals. The community has to do it together. And so that's that's kind of what is good. You can still watch the talk, but it's not completely accurate. So yeah, so now we're here. So enter in One City, One Book. Thank you so much for like doing this here. This is like so cool. The work that Beth does in the back end and all the team. It's been amazing to just see how hard everybody's working. And then we're going to talk about the actual bucket list now, which is great. I think we're
Drum roll.
Oh yeah, actual bucket list. Okay, so the first thing that's really important is when we're in this community, because Beth basically created a group for you guys specifically for this challenge, which is really, really exciting. Because you know, there's a lot of people, they can't come out at night, you know, or in the day, and it's hard, or maybe they don't have the reason to, but virtually, like giving people another option to be able to interact. And you know, sometimes, like, just so you know, I'm a like severe introvert. It takes a lot for me to like come out and like be with people, like not like this where I'm speaking, but like when I'm actually like going in somewhere and knowing people's names and all of that. And so it's sometimes that's like also really hard for people. And so what's great about having a challenge is you're giving people an opportunity to connect where maybe they can't come, what you think, like where they can't come in person. So so we basically are setting up values for the group where as you're sharing your goal, we just want it to be a safe space, free of judgment, no criticism. You're just supporting and encouraging each other through your goals. And so it's a really beautiful way. And we have fun. We have fun too. That's why there's dares. So, I mean, the dares are fun. And then, okay, so now I have this comfort circle framework. This is like probably the most fun thing that I've really noticed, and Laura, maybe you can like speak to it too. But this is basically so. What's going to happen during the challenge is we've designed these dares, which are basically like it's like an action, but it's a micro action. So kind of like Love was saying earlier, like we're not going too crazy outside. It's just a little bit, because what happens is when you can take these little bitty actions, they compound over time. So actually there's this really beautiful, I think one of the very first dares, Laura's going to have you work through your values. And do you want to maybe talk a little bit about that?
I came up with that idea. We wrote the Bucket List Challenge together, and I came up with the idea that the first dare should be take 15 minutes and write down everything you value in your life. And I came upon that by happenstance, but then of course I'm to a point now where I feel like it's anything happenstance. I worked for Good Housekeeping magazine for 7 years, and one day there was an article, and it was these women who were trying to lose weight, and they had a control group, and then they had the focus group, and the focus group sat down for 15 minutes, and they wrote down all of their values. They wrote down all of their values, the things they believe in, the things that matter to them. And the other group, the control group, didn't do it. And the women who actually did it lost 5 pounds in a month. Now, a full confession, when I did this, I was about to get married. So that was my actual reason. Like, oh, I want to lose those last 5 pounds. But I loved it so much that I now had this list of all of my values. I honestly think the reason it worked is because it helped prevent emotional eating. So sometimes if you emotionally eat, it's because you feel like there's some emptiness inside of you. But the people who wrote down the values felt filled inside, because now they know who they are and they know what they care about. So I think that's the reason it worked. But I loved having it because what I would do is I would put it in the back of my to-do list of my notebook, and once in a while I'd go back and I would look at it. And I've updated it maybe 5 times since then. But now I think the fact that I wrote that values list was the reason the day that my dad's bucket list landed in my lap, I was primed to do it. Because I already knew what I valued. So there's just something in writing down, just for 15 minutes, what are my values? It helps you for the first time to actually ask yourself that. You know, you're not writing down what other people tell you should matter. You're writing down what actually matters to you. And then when you actually get to the stage where Stacey's going to dare you to create your bucket list, those goals are going to make more sense for you personally.
I love that. Even if you're like scared about doing your bucket list right now, that one alone is worth everything.
Oh, it changed my life that I have a values list.
And it changed everyone that you did it with. Like it was huge, and it was funny because when Laura first designed that dare, she was like, I don't, just so you know, I'm going to show you how you share it in the group. She originally was like, I don't think they're gonna want to share it in the group, or like.
I was worried it might cheapen it. Yeah. There's
But
something magic about keeping it to yourself. Yeah.
But what ended up happening was everybody wanted to share, and so I'm going to talk about kind of like that example. So with the values list, you're welcome to write it down when we give you the dare, and then you're also, that's a comfort circle, right? We're just like journaling it, and then maybe you post in the group and say, I did it, and whatever you want to say about it. But there also could be an opportunity where you take a picture, you know, of it and
That's what I did. Yeah, I shared a picture of
and then it kind of like, and then we all take it. Does it make sense? We're all like a part of something. And so that's how the actions work. Is basically we'll basically give you an action, a dare, and then you then post it in the group. And what's nice is that's where the comfort circle comes in. So just so you know, I have comfort circles for everything. That's part of Do the Thing. Is it's no longer your comfort zone, because if it's your comfort zone, that's scary. But when you know you have a comfort circle, it's like, oh, okay, I just need to go like 1 more inch, or I could like not do the whole thing. And so when you're responding to the dare, you could type your answer in the group and post it. You can actually audio record it if you like. You could video it. You could do something really fun and go live. Actually, Beth and I went live earlier today. It's really fun to go live because it's also fast. But again, it's a comfort circle. So if your brain right now is going, I'm never going to go live, it's okay. You're just going to type. That's all. And then there's something I also call my people party, which is really fun. You could do those in person or online, which is just basically getting together and doing the dare with somebody else and then telling us about it. But that's basically what we're going to be doing for 14 days. Is Laura's we've like basically designed these dares they're the same ones that we've done prior, and we edited them a little bit with That's How for this city specifically, and it's one action a day, so it takes like 5 to 10 minutes a day, and then you share it in the group. But the thing that's so beautiful about it is it builds community because you're doing it together. And the first thing,
What's this?
this is the the commitment card. So this is part of the Do the Thing formula. So this is where when you share your commitment, whether it's tonight or in the group, you basically post it in the group, and then you're just saying why you want to join the challenge. Like, what are you actually looking to get out of it? And then that's actually the I in I'm game, and then it's also the A. So that's what I mean by each piece. That's why it's so powerful, because even though they're little tiny micro kind of commitments that you're doing, it's all got this formula baked in to help people take action. And then Laura mentioned the other one that I do, and that's also what are your excuses and how you overcome them. When people that are doing this one specifically, it frees you from anything that's been holding you back, because when you can say your excuses out loud and then tell yourself like what you want to do to overcome them, you basically shift your entire way that you see life, because now you're no longer holding yourself back
You know
anymore.
what's so funny? Like when I saw that the other day and I wrote my pre-dare, and I thought, because I always do this every single time. Like I'll be the guinea pig along with all of you. And I wrote, I'm worried I don't have enough time. Why do I not have enough time? Oh, I'm doing 20 events over 2 weeks in Greensboro right now. And then the way I'm going to overcome it is I'm going to let people help me. And I realized when I wrote that down, I have a real problem with asking people to help me.
Yeah.
Like that felt a little nerve-wracking to me. And then I realized, oh, but look at how much everyone's been helping me this week. Like that's going to happen and it will be okay. So that's what's really cool about the fact that you have that pre-dare, because you're asking people before they even start the challenge, if this comes up for you, this is this bugaboo, whatever it is for you, it might be different than it is for me. You're going to know how to deal with it.
I love that. How are we doing on time? Are we done? Just making sure.
We're good.
Okay. We still have a few more minutes? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think if you guys are open to it, I'd love to like open the floor up for any questions, but basically maybe you can just kind of like.
I'll say a close to our Facebook audience.
Okay,
And then,
good.
And then
Okay,
we'll open it up for questions and book signing afterward too.
Yeah,
So,
and just to sum it up, it's basically, he said it's 14 days, and then every day we're just posting one of these fun little images in the group, and then telling you what to do, and then you're responding to it, and then Laura's going to be there.
Oh, I will read everything.
Yeah, Laura's going to be there like weekly, so she's basically guiding you through your bucket list and helping you through it as you're taking action, which to me
I might read it at midnight, but I will read it.
and we will post on the group on Facebook, but also we're going to put the dare on our website, so that if you're not on Facebook, you can follow along. But to interact, we wanted to have a closed group on Facebook so that it's
and that's the most beautiful thing, is because it's the first time we're doing a challenge in this community, so it's going to be a smaller group to start, which to me is like one of the most special times.
Yeah.
You know, like even with Modern Prairie, when we started with them, I think it was with only 50 people, and then
30.
and 30 people, and then now it's like I think over
300.
400. Yeah. And so same thing with Do the Thing. When I started the challenges, it was 100. Now it's like thousands of people, and so it's really a special opportunity when you get to be a part of something when a community first does it, because it's smaller, it's